Well, 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 to
Well, well, well.
our
Welcome back.
quadrillions of adoring fans, you know, might as well, might as well pretend. What
Why
is it
not?
like the law of like attraction, where it's like, oh, if you believe it enough, it will happen, or if you think positively. Not that I believe in any of that stuff, but I'll pretend.
Yeah, well, it can't hurt, can it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You know that old thing when you're like giving a speech, just imagine everyone in your underwear. It's like, well, how about it's when we're doing a stream, just imagine there are people watching.
We just imagine there's someone watching. Oh, that
Oh
sounds sad.
man, just waiting for 7:30 and then we'll get started. But as always, hopping on a couple of minutes early, just in case anyone's actually hung around through 10 minutes of average synthwave.
That's fair enough, I think.
I think so too. I
It's
think
cool
so
to,
too.
I don't know, I don't mind chilling out to it.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of. I think I wrote that. Well, I didn't really write it. I just kind of whacked it up in Ableton, but it was fun to do. Oh, here we go. We've got. Are we starting to see? There we go. There we go. We have via our secondary communication mechanism. we have a
The
the
secret
secret.
channel.
That's right. The secret. I remember when that was all the rage. Was there like a movie or something like that at some point? Oh, jeez. I don't know.
They've probably made a movie about it, surely.
Yeah. No, I feel like it's like if wishful thinking was a religion. Oh man, I hope there's no one who like feels super. Anyway,
I was going to say probably, probably a good place not to go into.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Do you want to hear my opinion about the world's top five religions? This Reese's get cancelled from the internet speedrun. Any
Yeah,
percent
basically,
speedrun.
that's what it would
Um,
be.
all right, so let's kind of get started. Let me just check my console is looking clear because I don't want to leak stuff that I don't want to leak.
No
Okay,
spoilers.
so today we are doing a Hack the box called PC. So it's recently, I don't know if it's recently retired or it's been retired for a while. We're pretty sure we've gotten 80% of the way through it at some point, and well, 80% of the way through, and then the last little bit we were just like, we'll just stream live tonight. So in either a retreat or a unique form of boredom torture, you get to see us kind of do the last little hop. Hopefully, the
Yes.
last little hop ourselves, as I try and remember how to do things like SSH tunneling. And also, any apologies for background noise. My office is right next to the European laundry in my apartment, and my washing machine is drying. All right, let's get started.
Let's
So,
do it.
let me go to our handy dandy run sheet. And thanks, Notion, for giving me all of the prompts in the world I could never want. Okay, so as per usual, I've actually, for handy reference, put the IP address up the top. As
Very nice.
as per usual, we start with our usual contentious nmap. So I'm going to sc dash sv dash. The actual nmap we have in the write up is wrong. It's dash sc because I think that was my dodgy one.
You're gonna need a little space in there too, buddy.
Oh yeah, the spacebar on this laptop has started to fade, and I left my fancy keyboard at work. pc.nmap, and then let me just double check if I meant to. No, yep, just the IP address. Cool. And then we go 10.129. I mean, by this point, you've probably seen a million and one nmaps getting done. But we're just going to see what we see, and we're not going to see anything particularly creative because it thinks the house does. Oh, that's right. we had this couple of us had this thing where that's right.
You got to
I
sudo
forget
it.
there's been a change and I have to sudo it now. I don't know
Yeah.
why, but no doubt our good friend in our backup communication channel would explain why I magically have to say. I mean, it makes sense. You know, the Nmap's got the capability to do pings, but you need to be elevated to do that because you're doing kernel stuff. So there you go. If you're seeing an error about pings, just run sudo. Just try sudo. And then if you still get it, then just do that -pn thing, which will stop it from pinging. It'll blindly try and hit the ports. Okay, so we can only see SSH, which, hey, you know, we could try brute forcing SSH, but that's never really the answer here. There's obviously something somewhere else. So what we're going to do is change our Nmap a little bit, which is PC1. And then we're going to go...
So from here, we kind of assume that the port or the thing that we want to attack is on a different port, a non-standard port. So we're just going to scan the whole TCP port range.
This could take a while. So I might...
You could do like a capital T5 or something to make it a bit more aggressive, but it shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, I'll let it run for a bit, and if it goes nowhere... but yeah, so, you know, the Nmap by default just scans common ports. So that's not just all the obvious. You go and like wiki for like common ports. It scans actual. I'd say a relatively good, you know, 8080 and 8443 and all those other fun ones people use and commonly used apps that use other ports. But sometimes people stick stuff on completely arbitrary ports, and so you just scan them all and wait. While that's going, I'll prep for the next step. Let's see. So what I'll actually do is I'll just create a new... No, that's PowerShell. Debian.
Yeah, it takes probably 2 minutes or so to run.
So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go back over here and I'm going to start prepping up... cd stream/pc, and then we're going to go nmap, and we're going to go back to versions and scripts, and we're going to output to PC 50051, because we actually already know what port it's on from before, so that's what I'm just teeing up now. SP 551, and then I'm going to go 10.129.75.62, and then we want to go all the way back to the start and do a sudo, and then type in my super secret password, and we'll see if this one's finished. No, it's still going. So what happens is this one runs. We'll show you the output once we get there, but this one runs and will show us that port 50,051 is open. Yes, 50,051. Oh, it's taken a while. There we go. And we get back a bunch of stuff. So this is just the Nmap fingerprint, where it's like, hey, if you know what the service is, submit it at this thing and say what service is, and service you think it is, and we'll add it to the database so that if we detect it, we'll have a nice detection for it. In our case, we can also go to half a sec while I just type in a separate place. 62 551, and if we try and go there just in a web browser, we get a bunch of guff. We can do a curl and retrieve that, and it's just a glob of binary data. And so it's like, well, you know, you can try and look at it a few different ways. Use XXD to kind of see if it's anything meaningful. And insofar as checking that stuff, it's not really that meaningful. So we can go down and where are we? Okay, so this is where we can go for port 551. And just start to have a look. And the second thing we see is intriguing. This first one is bloody speed guide. Like, a lot of these websites, when you Google for ports, are just useless. I reckon they're just there for ad revenue.
Yeah, they're pretty clickbaity just to try and get top result on Google for ads, most likely, yeah.
All right, I think my laptop's fans just picked up. Okay, so this is actually XRP Ledger, which is to do with, I think, a cryptocurrency. But it talks about gRPC that runs on port 50051. So we can go gRPC, see what we find. And go, it's like an open source framework for remote procedure calls. So at a high level, remote procedure call kind of like layer or library or however you want to call it means you can have like a distributed application, so a client and a server, and you, as the developer, you don't have to sit there and specifically write web requests off to the server like you might have to if you write the like REST APIs or SOAP APIs or whatever you use for an API where you go, give me some JSON back and it gives you some JSON. Instead, you get programmatic objects, classes that are defined, and you define them on both sides, or you include the same library or set of interfaces on both sides, and then bam, you're away. And it's a hell of a lot easier to deal with from a programming perspective than dealing with REST APIs. But, you know, what you gain in convenience, you lose in terms of adaptability, because if you've written it all in C#, well, it's a lot harder to have a Python library call it, I think. Although, maybe with this, they've got ways of doing, like, cross-language stuff. Anyway, that's getting into a whole different world. But this is interesting for us, because there could be vulnerabilities here, or it might just be kind of like an application we can hunt around and find a vulnerability further in. So we can quickly search for...
It's also interesting because it's not the standard foothold that we expect to see. So like when we saw the port initially and we saw that Nmap didn't come back with anything, we kind of just guessed that it was a web server. That's usually what it is. And yeah, it turns out it's not in this case.
And gRPC is specifically designed to be able to, I think, basically be proxied through can work with HTTP proxies and a bunch of other stuff. So it, from a protocol perspective, is a lot like HTTP, which is why the web browser happily tried to open it rather than giving us like a I don't like this, or trying to get us to download a, you know, when you go somewhere and it's like, here's a file octet string. So, you know, there are like some vulnerabilities, but there's nothing, it doesn't look like there's anything specific like that's like, yeah, you can like denial of service, HPAC, table accounting, you know. But rather than trying to blindly try vulns or understand how these vulns that might not actually be that meaningful, let's just try and talk to this thing. So with a bit of hunting around, we went and found that there is a tool called, let me see if I can get there. So gRPC client CLI dash. So there is an out of the box, I guess there's a whole bunch of them. This was the one we landed on when we were looking around for it, that lets you talk to gRPC things like servers.
Yeah, so we found on GitHub an awesome gRPC list, you know, one of those awesome lists, and we just picked out random one of the CLI based gRPC clients, and exactly worked for us, but I'm sure there's plenty of others out there.
I was actually looking at like just trying to do it in Python, but there's a whole lot of extra like reverse engineering what the structure of the thing is to get that to work. So this client just can figure stuff out. Did not like that because I have one too many zeros. There we go. Port
That'll do it.
500,000. So we end up with this thing where we could go like into gRPC server reflection, which is actually looks like it's a part of gRPC. So reflections where you can kind of at runtime dive into the structure of objects in your code. We can have a quick look at it. It's nothing particularly useful there. You know, like you can put a hosting limit. That doesn't really get you anywhere, and that's what Control D to go back. Simple app is the app that's been written that's listening on the other side using gRPC. So we have get info, login user, and register user. So if we try get info and we do that, and then we try, no, you know, we're just shooting around in the dark here, and I just go 1. And we should get, yeah, missing token header. We're like, okay, that's interesting. So maybe we need to log in. And at this point, we could futz around with login, or we can just go, well, let's go to the next logical step and register a user. And we can go username, and then we can go those guys. And
yeah, we see that error message and we think tokens usually mean auth. We haven't found any creds anywhere yet, but we can register our own creds, so let's give that a go.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. Is there a way to get a token? So in a normal web app pen test, you might be testing an API endpoint and a bunch of them are like public. And then you hit one that just goes authentication failing, missing token or something like that. And you go to the auth endpoint and you auth and you get a JOT or a encrypted string, or even just like a random string can be used as a token. And there we go, account created. Now we go to log in. And so that's kind of, it's a bit similar to that. We need to get a token. So let's try. So I'm skipping checking the defaults because we kind of know what they are.
Yeah, we can safely assume that it's the same as the registration.
Yeah, that should be good. And would you look at this? We get a token. And
nice.
Let's just drop that up here in our little scratch area. So to just for context, if you're playing around with this, you don't actually normally see the tokens in this app when you do the login thing. They're kind of a debug feature. And you have to, that's why specifically you have to have the -V, because that will have verbose output, and because the logging for this, it's response headers and trailers. I don't think the CLI will output by default. That's all it is.
Yeah, so again, depending on which CLI client or client you end up using, you may not have to do the verbose output. It might just do it by default.
All right.
But in our case, at least, we had to do verbose output.
Where are we?
Otherwise, all you see is the top part, the status 0 OK, which is not really useful at all.
And then I'm just looking for the bit where we drop the token in. You know what we don't have in our write-up, Jake? Is the bloody...
You have to reconnect to the app using that token.
Yes, that's what I'm looking for in our write-up, the bit where we...
Let me dump it in the write-up real quick.
Because I forget what the... there's another switch you have to add to force a header.
It is -H for the header, but let me Just dump it in. I
You're
see.
witnessing brilliance, everyone. We're real time editing.
Okay, there we go. I real time edited it
Whereabouts is it?
into
Oh yeah, I see
probably
it. Okay,
probably the wrong
so
spot, but for now it's good enough.
um, key pass has popped up just to go. Hey, you should do an update. And I probably should. Okay, cool.
Sounds like a good idea, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the only password in is the hack the box password.
I think you have to put the header the way that
Oh
the
yeah, it's before
CLI
the
client app
host.
works. You have to put the flag before the
Yeah,
host. Yeah.
yeah, I remember this now. H, and then it's as simple as
It
token.
doesn't like it when you put, and this is again another limitation of the client that we're using.
Yeah, if we were
But you,
going a more comprehensive kind of um, approach, reverse engineering a thing and using Python, it would just build it that way, I guess. But this is the way of it, like when you're doing like, whether it's CTFing or pen testing, sometimes you grab a utility and you just use that and make do. Let's go ID equals 1. Okay, so what we get back is for the message. So this is message JSON type. No. The admin is working hard to fix the issues. That was like, okay. Then we might try. Let's make it bigger, and we get none type object is not subscriptable. And I'm like, okay, so this thing in my mind that indicates whatever is listening on the other end is written in Python, because that is a very Python thing to see.
yeah, that was our next logical step, was to jump into trying to find like Python code
Then
execution.
we might try this. And bad argument type for built-in operation. And so this bit's Python, but when we Google this, bad argument for built-in operation, I think this was where we stumble across that it's...
So you put a semicolon in to try and get like command chaining.
Yeah, I did, didn't I? And that was what I noticed. I didn't actually Google that error. We could Google that error, but let's just do this. And no, we still see bad argument type. I'm pretty sure that's what it was, but I did something like that because I thought maybe it's just shelling out or...
Oh, it's because you're not doing numbers anymore. If you do it with 2 numbers,
right. Yeah.
It throws a different error.
I think I've done something like that. No, the admin is working hard to fix the issues because I've got to put another number in it. SQLite 3 warning. There we go. I think I also got there through, eventually you can find out other ways, but what we do is we just keep sticking in malformed input. This is where if you'd written a Python client or Bash or use language of choice, you could then
do fuzzing.
You could do the fuzzing lists, whereas in this it's a bit trickier. You got to kind of do it by hand. Okay, so that's interesting. So let's kind of do a little check for, do we get some nice things that you can get in SQL, like can we do this? So if we do 3 minus 2, the admin is working hard to fix the issue. But if we did 3, we should get none type, which means there is a good chance there's maths going on, which probably means there's some SQL injection possibility. So now we got to figure out how much of that do we get. So could we do like, 1 and 1 minus 1, and it doesn't like that. So you can only execute one statement at a time, which, whether that's by accident or by design, at least that's something. But
it's an error message which points us in the right direction. Yeah.
But it's not something enough. So if we go type ID equals 1 or...
Hey, graceful beast.
Or 1 equals 2, we get the admin is working hard to fix the issue. So something's happening there. If we change that to, I think, was it something where I just did like 2 or 1 equals 2, you get a completely different error again. So something is making this thing be able to evaluate back to, okay, the ID is 1 or true, and it pulls ID 1. Okay, so we then go to like payload all the things, which has a whole bunch of SQLite specific payloads, and we start trying some other stuff. So strap in everybody, get ready for some relatively boring running through a bunch of SQL injections. But which is interesting because hand SQL injections don't come up a lot in like CTFs.
Exactly. So we basically start working our way through the list, and eventually we find that it's vulnerable to union injection, because essentially what it allows us to do is run multiple SQL queries in one statement. So we don't trigger that error that we can only run one statement at a time. And this is essentially what tools like SQL Map do in the background. It just does it insanely fast,
Yeah, it goes through all
rather
the
than us
combos.
manually typing it all.
So there we go. So we know that we can do union injections because we get. So basically, what happens when this query resolves, it'll try and combine the results of this to this. But I think this ends up gazumping whatever would have returned when you tried to select one, and so we get the SQLite version, which means we can now start to look at getting tables.
Yeah, so we can use this to start using other SQLite commands in that union query to start getting further info about the underlying system, which is things like the version, which we've already got, and now we can look at SQLite doesn't necessarily have the same structure as something like MySQL or
MySQL is multiple databases in one database server. You can have multiple databases, same with Postgres, or you can have one. But there's always like a separate meta database that you have to go and use to find out what other databases exist. Whereas SQLite is the database and it's about tables. So what we're doing here is SQLite master is the table that just contains meta information about the database. So what other tables are there? And we see an interesting one. We've got this table called accounts, and there's a username field and a password field, which looks interesting. So we want to try and get something from that. So let's go and select password from, ignore my dodgy spacebar. So select password from accounts. And that's interesting. And so we instantly jumped at like, oh, sweet. That's probably the SSH creds. So for some shiggles, we'll copy this out into our handy bit up here.
It's also not super useful because we're only getting one result back, but we knew that we have created an account ourselves. So we would expect, or we would hope to find a command that lets us not only see other people's passwords, but also see our password.
See our own, yeah. So it's username as well. So this is the interesting bit where we start to see some odd behavior. So if I say select username, I don't get the username, which is odd. But as soon as we go, I just went like YOLO and changed that, and we get admin. So, all of a sudden having that union select statement to get username just gives us back our initial message. So we change that number so that part of the query doesn't work, and we get admin, which would make you think that if we go SSH 10.129.75.62, and it'll be admin at, if I remember correctly, and sure, I'll trust whatever you want, and then we'll just copy this and cross our fingers, and oh no, it doesn't work because that was a bit of a feint. It's so
Yeah,
The
but we
the
do
person in
have.
our other chat, the other chat we have, is just jumped ahead of where we're heading to. Okay, so that doesn't work. We could try and log in, and I think I'm not going to do it, but we could try and go through that login logic flow again with those creds to see if it's just app specific, and it doesn't work either. So
Yeah, we try and log into the app itself with gRPC to try and get like an admin token, but that doesn't work.
so what we
Whether
now do,
we demo that or not, we can skip that bit probably.
yeah. If I've done this properly, group concat. Okay, so what this does is it just concatenates all of the rows for that column together, and we actually see admin and Sal. So admin is probably the first user, and Sal's the second one. I think we also did queries where we like figured out that there was an ID field or something as well. I don't
Yeah,
quite
we did a
remember.
bunch of other stuff in the background to view the
Um,
table structure and
yeah,
everything else, but it's not necessarily relevant to.
and we can do the same with password. So we've got the user, admin, and Sal, and then we have a user. So the admin user account's actually admin and admin, which probably lets you auth locally in the app. I'm assuming that might have been there for people who just YOLO'd with admin admin and it let them in. We went
Well,
the tough way, and
we tried. We
wasn't
tried
actually that
admin
tough.
admin both in SSH and the app, and it doesn't work. So the creds are probably like that's probably a rabbit hole or something
Yeah,
else. I'm
something.
not entirely sure.
But anyway, the password is correct, but the username isn't admin. It's actually Sal. So SAU. So, oh, my home automation just turned off my lights. Okay, now I'm extra hacky. Okay, so we try that again, but it's actually Sal or SAU. And we copy the here is your password. That should be it.
Does it have like Windows new lines or anything weird going on in the paste?
Yeah, I'll just type it. Oh, wait a second. You know what's funny is so there probably is something on 6.2. That's interesting. Um,
The IP's wrong.
yeah, I typed the yours. Yeah. So even though it didn't work before with admin in this password, it's not meant to. But in this case, it didn't work because I fat fingered the IP address. Oh, that's great. There we go. I'm in. You know what's funny is this is why I like cert-based SSH, because there is no like fumbling like passwords because you can't see them in the thing. All right, let me just double check this. All right, so we're in. And now we're rapidly approaching the bit where we're going to be figuring things out on the fly.
Yeah. Something a little bit different that we noticed is there's no like banner info or welcome
Yeah,
message
we're
or
just
anything like that.
straight in.
It's just like straight in, which
Uh,
doesn't necessarily have any meaning to the rest of the box, but it's just something different again.
yeah, we get the user.text, which is nice because normally, like in most of these, you've popped the like www user, and you've still
Yeah,
got to
then you have to
elevate from
escalate.
that. It's kind of nice to just be straight to user. The gRPC stuff was an interesting detour. Okay, so if we do ps-aux just to see what else is running on the box, where are we? We should see some stuff with Python. If I can look properly, running as I think it's running a Sal. Where did I find it? It's in here somewhere.
It should be the opt app, app.py one in there somewhere.
Yeah, I can't remember how I found the path to it because I was just poking around, but it's
It is there. It's just up a little bit.
Oh right, you spotted it.
Yeah, yeah. It was in there somewhere.
And we're looking for app.py. So we can see this is what was running on the server. It's a Python script. It's doing stuff with SQLite 3. It's doing some gRPC stuff. There's some queries in there. We could try and figure out exactly why it's vulnerable, but we're going to move on with our lives. So one of the other things we can do is a netstat.
Yeah, so at this point we just go through our standard local privesc enumeration and eventually get to running our netstat command.
Yeah, so we check users, nothing in the passwords file. Check all the other obvious
There's
things.
not even an admin user in the password file.
So, we see something listening on port 8000. And interestingly enough, 9666. But, I don't exactly know what that is.
So because that's listening on 127001, it means it's only listening locally, which is why Nmap didn't pick it up.
This one's only listening locally. Not sure why Nmap didn't pick that up. That might be something else. That's irrelevant.
966 obviously didn't respond, and it's irrelevant. Yeah.
Well, as far as we know, it might actually be relevant. We should probably check it at some point. What we can do while we're on the server is a quick curl, and then we can do. We've just gotten a bit of advice on an even better. Netstat command. Wait a second. ALNP.
That's in the write up, I'm pretty sure.
There we go.
Yeah, it is.
PID program name, and they're all empty.
We can't actually see it because of, well, this is what helps us lead us to believe that it's running by root, because we can't see the process that's running it because we don't have permissions.
Yeah, you need sudo, and we don't. There is quite a good chance we don't have sudo.
No, we tested that. That's part of our standard local enumeration process, is doing sudo-l to see what we've got, and this user doesn't have anything sudo-y.
I'm not in the sudo. This incident will be reported. Who? Is there just some dude somewhere in the world who gets... I know it's not, but I like the idea that there's some just poor guy. Let's call him David, who's just Dave. He's just off in a room somewhere, and he's just got a printer and the ability to do nothing, but the printer just says, this user on this host tried to do sudo, and he's powerless.
For every Linux box out there.
But the incident got reported. Okay, so we could curl 27001 8000, but we just get a redirect to /login, and this is going to be really difficult to try and do purely via command line. So we need to jump back and out of this and reconnect and map our local a local port and forward it through SSH to...
so we're going to do a SSH forward tunnel, which basically just maps that port to allows us to listen on that same port and forward traffic through, and then we can just browse to it locally and hopefully
I
use our browser CLI.
Can paste the password in this time. Hey, I'm in. And then if I go to my Linux Firefox, yes, I love my scuffed setup. It's great. Pyload. Interesting. I don't have dark mode, so I'm sorry if I'm nuking your eyeballs.
I thought that already when you had Notepad, because you can even dark mode Notepad in
Nah, mate, I'm
Windows
all about
11.
that light mode. I've got astigmatism, man. Like, dark mode's death. It's actually not, but someone told me it was. Okay.
That's fair.
So, Pyload, pre-auth remote code execution. So there might be something for this. So let's go Pyload vulnerabilities.
Yeah, you won't be able to do how I did it in the write-up because you probably don't have search exploit.
I think you will find it's not going to be that hard for me to get the search exploit.
Yeah,
I can just
not.
get
It's
it
on
then.
exploit. Yeah.
DV, yeah. Okay, so is it this particular one? Yeah, it's the pre-auth remote code execution, which is just what you want. Oh, you can execute code before you authenticate. Which I realize that sounds super condescending. People do it by accident. That's fine. You find the vulnerability, you get it patched. Problem solved. Unless it's intentional, in which case, why are you allowing arbitrary code as a service? Okay, so there's an eval in there. That's always a risk. OSS download manager written in Python, manageable by web interface. So it's like remote install packages and stuff like that. Interesting. Okay, so I'm not going to spend too much time trying to read through that because we're going to look for the actual thing in ExploitDB and see what that has to say.
Yeah, so there's no like version info or anything useful in the web interface itself that we can see, but a quick Google of Pyload exploits or vulnerabilities comes up straight away with these exploits that are from this year, which gives us a pretty good feeling that they're going to work. So we give it a go because there's no harm in trying.
Sometimes you have to YOLO. What? You can't search by ID? That's a crime.
Okay. If you search Pyload, it's the only one.
Can I just stick a thing in here and then go yoink? Yes, I can. And I did. Okay. All I did is I stuck the ID in the URL.
Yeah.
Import request argpath. Yeah, you can take some arguments as you run. Interesting. There's that somewhere in there. Is it this endpoint that has the vulnerability? And then import OS system function package cryptid.
Yeah, so it's the add cryptid endpoint with the JK parameter that's you can import the OS system command.
And then you've got command execution in this bit.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. And we're going to go to...
You can view the raw code at the top. There's a little link for it.
Oh, yeah. Why was I about to download the web page?
Yeah. I thought that's where you were going with this.
Raw code. View raw. There we go. Me dum-dum. Me smooth brain. Me work on smooth brain. Crinkly soft brain bad. Okay, so we want to do a quick wget. And I think it's -O. For
capital O, yep.
Yeah, that's what I did, yeah. Hacks.py. We'll go a quick cat. Actually, no, we'll do a vim hacks.py. Is there anything we have to change in here? Nope, you give it as a command. Oh, I love that. I love that so much.
Yeah, you run it as a command and it takes some arguments.
Do you like arguments?
Depends who it's with. And if I'm right.
Yeah, I like arguments when I win them. Okay, so now what we're going to have to do is figure out how we're going to hit it. And that's not going to be hard because, as I think you'll find, if we go python hacks.py u is HTTP localhost and then 8123.
Yeah, so because we are still tunneling traffic through, we can just run this locally on our attacking machine rather than have to try and get it to the other box and
in some
over
ways
there.
SSH can be useful as you run a bastion in your environment. I'm not recommending that you do this without knowing the potential consequences, but if you're after a really quick way of giving relatively narrow access into your environment, you might have a home IP, you've got a VPC in Amazon, you spin up a bastion host, and you allow SSH between your home and the bastion via a security group, and then you can kind of forward whatever you want over SSH, and it's all nice and encrypted and hides away what's further in the network. Or if you work in IT or sysadmin and stuff like that, it's a nice way to kind of be able to deal with it as if it was local. There are security implications to be able to deal with it, to being able to deal with it as if it was local. So, you know, no module named requests. Okay, so I'm gonna have to do my usual Python -env venv.
It needs Python 3, yeah, and the request library and a few others that are in there.
Yeah. Oh, my Python is Python 3 and this thing.
Nice.
So
That's
I should now just
you never know. These days there are still distros out there that use Python 2, even though it's not supposed to exist.
Wait, it's env. Wait. Yeah, that's there. There's an env. Env bin activate, and I want to go source. So I think we've probably talked about virtual M's before. They're a nice way to kind of stick in a nice little container Python dependencies without messing up system Python. Pip install requests. And pip install.
He's really screwing you up, isn't it?
Yeah, I normally use a separate keyboard, but I left it in the office because I was like, I didn't want to haul it. I'm going back into the office tomorrow, and I didn't want to haul like an extra thing home that I was just going to be taking back. Where's my water? There. Okay, so now we should be able to run. Bam. Okay. Should it have given us the output?
No, so what we've got here is a blind code
I
execution.
I didn't like check. So we're in the bit that I haven't done yet.
Yeah, that's all good. I have like literally done this minutes ago. So
that's why you were running ahead of me.
We're flying blind and I'm running kind of ahead just in case. So
wait a second.
Yeah.
I need to be on the server. That's my local. Yeah.
So yeah, basically what this code or what this exploit does is it's kind of like a blind code execution. It could probably be modified to make it not so blind and do something with a response, but I'm not entirely sure. I haven't read too deep into the exploit or the vulnerability to see if that's actually possible. But what we do get is, so because it's blind, we're just going to test a couple of things, and the command that you just ran is testing if we write a file to temp using this code.
I'm pretty sure I'm actually just doing who am I, so I need to do and because it's blind, I'm not seeing the output, so I need to run something that'll give us some output. So just
yeah. So the one that you copied there is just the who am I, and so now the next one that we try is to just like touch a random file, and because we've got SSH on the box, we can go and see what that file is, who it's owned by, and all of that kind of stuff. And once you get there, we can see that the file is actually created and owned by root.
So at this
which means that this app is running by root.
So at this point, we could do the lazy thing and just copy what is invariably root.txt in the root directory into the temp directory, or you can actually try and get a reverse shell.
Yeah.
Um,
So there's a few different ways that we could do this.
okay,
The
so
easiest.
this is the bit where you're like I can
Yeah,
see this is the bit where we're now flying by the seat of our pants.
you've caught up to my write-up. But yeah, the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
easiest way that I'm thinking is because we've already got SSH on the box, just create a rev.sh in temp should be fine,
Yeah, yeah.
and give it execution permissions, and then in the exploit just run /temp/rev.sh.
And then we want to vim rev.sh. This is just great. I love cross permission boundary things.
So it'll
Like
be
Windows scheduled tasks running PowerShell scripts that any user can edit. Okay, so we've created that, and we want to spin up a listener. So dash so LNVP, right?
NLVP. Yep,
NLV. Yeah, same letters.
same letters, different
And we're
order.
gonna
Doesn't
listen
matter.
on our favorite port. Bam. And we're gonna go back to this one, and we're wanting to run.
Did you modify the rev.sh with the right IP address and port?
Shut up.
Just making sure.
Thank you for saving my, making me not look like a fool.
I figured you just copy pasted straight from the write-up.
Yeah. I blindly is what I do. What I do is I copy paste and then I figure out why it didn't work after the fact. Back when I used to do development, this is what you do. You go, here is some bad code. It doesn't work.
Is that your local IP, or was that the target IP as well?
No comment.
Okay. Deal.
And we are.
We could also, just like sticky bit bash into a different
10, 10,
directory
14,
and run
50.
There's plenty of ways now that we could probably exploit this to get a shell.
Yeah. Maybe we should do a stream where we just go, here are the 101 ways you can get a shell with this kind of vulnerability. And we could be like, I'm on my toaster. And I just pop shell.
Because it's a web request, you could probably send like a base64 string that gets piped to bash, or gets piped to decode and then piped to bash or whatever. Like there's so many different options we could do.
I'm listening to I've just logged onto my oven and look at me execute this code on this other server. Okay, that far out. I did not want to hit close.
Oh, what have you done?
Oh, which tab did I close? It's all good. It was just, I'm pretty sure it was the hacks one, and I can just go up.
Don't do the sh part. So just do /temp/ you don't even need the dot. Just do /temp/rev.sh.
Yep. No such file or directory is because I actually have to
go into PC instead of
and
streams.
then I need to actually do the virtual env thing again.
Yep.
Because I closed the one that had that. This is like the bane of my existence. I'm pretty sure every Linux admin's like, I hate it when I accidentally close shell that I had a bunch of stuff in. All my variables.
This is why you should be using tmux.
All my mvars. Oh, of course I'm going to get lectured about tmux. No.
Well, if you close the terminal, the tmux would still be running in a process that you could just reconnect to.
I don't care if people tell me oxygen is good to breathe. On principle, I'm going to disagree, even while I continue to breathe the sweet air. Okay.
Fair.
So I've gotten back to that point, and we should be able to do this. And and let me double check that I actually have it set properly here. 10, 10, 14, 50, 1, 3, 3, 7. Yeah. Should work.
Yeah, so
it can't be
on
that my letters are the wrong way around.
Go back to the SSH with SAO
Yeah.
and just double check the files there, and it's got execute permissions and stuff.
Oh, of course.
Did you see? You might need to chmod it.
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
haven't
yeah.
done that.
Well, as soon as you tell me that, I'm like, of course.
Well, I did tell you that the first time around.
And I was too busy being generally awesome.
That's fair. Yeah, so because it doesn't have execute permissions, it's not.
Well, that was also why I was trying to run it with the SH.
Yeah. What's interesting in there is you can see there's also a root-owned payload binary. Or is that a directory? It's a directory.
Yeah.
In temp, which is interesting because
go.
we didn't put that there.
There we go. I got there, Jake.
You did it. So now we have a full root shell.
Hey. And we got there. And all within the hour too. The last bit. We figured the last bit of this was actually going to be piss easy. Because the gRPC bit for... Like, this box was just ranked as an easy. We probably need to start doing some harder boxes. Now that we're getting back into the swing of it. But, like, that gRPC bit, it actually was quite nice. It involved a bit of, like... The process we were going through, we had to reverse engineer how it worked. Again, one of the great things about working in security and doing pen testing is like reverse engineering what someone else has done, either because it's wildly out of date and there's no doco, or they don't want to give you doco. It's always fun.
And that's a
pen test.
Yeah,
like,
that's.
Hey, this pen test will be easier if you just give me like some access to the source code so I can like check and like go, okay, I think there might be something here. Let me test. They go, no, black box only.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like even the easy boxes still can provide a nice learning experience. Like neither of us, I don't think, had experienced gRPC before, so it was nice to, like you said, do a bit of reading up. It took us a while to even just kind of look for or find the right way to interface with it, and find the CLI clients and the awesome list, and then, like you said, reverse engineer the app itself. So. Yeah, it was good. But I do agree. We will start trying to work on some of the mediums and working our way up. I do actually have a write-up I started on an insane one.
Oh,
but
nice.
Last time I did an insane one, remember, it took me...
Like 3 months?
Like, I think it was basically a month.
Yeah.
To do it only working like an hour a week or so on them, which is also an issue. We need to spend more time on them.
What we probably need to do is like find a way to be able to just spend a week just smashing boxes. But there's part of the things I like about the slightly more difficult ones is you start to get into more. I mean, my favorite one was still the one where you used BGP to hijack traffic. That was pretty cool.
Yes,
that was a very long time ago. That was like, we're talking pre-COVID, which is whew, insane. So anyway, if you've tuned in, thank you for tuning in. We are going to call it there. Hopefully we'll be on it again in a couple of weeks. Well, we should be on in a couple of weeks. And
yes, definitely.
Have yourselves a good time. Watch yourselves out there.
That's all we can do.